Right, this is everything that I've written up so far that I want to say to my GP. I've got a meeting this Saturday. So, the med certs are long-term. Medical treatment and rehabilitation options for overseas, there is none available. I do not, nor will I, ever feel safe in New Zealand. This was a criminal intent of the terrorists involved in ACC Crown and Government. And that's why they created all their fear and violence and abuse, threats, intimidation, harassment, criminal harassment, stalking, slandering, labelling, defaming, kidnapping. That's why they instigate fear and violence to create all these conflicts. And it left me with post-traumatic stress, which has not been addressed since it took effect. And it's completely taken over your life. But still, they expect me to be able to just jump up and do everything myself. Right? I suffer post-traumatic stress because of their actions. And I get no help, assistance, support, protection of any kind. Because ACC is a criminal-run entity by the New Zealand government. And it is a slave trade action whenever they take complete control of your life. They isolate you, they alienate you, they single you out, and they deny you access to rehabilitation and medical and treatment needs. And they deny you access to discussing your case or getting any reports written up, so that they actually have to deal with the civil and criminal jurisdictions. As it stands, you've got ACC Review and Appeal that is the biggest load of garbage. It's just a facade by the government. It's a sham from start to finish, and it's well proven fact that it's a sham in my case. The frustration, the torment, the torture, the terrorizing, and everyone involved hiding away, but when it suits their purpose, they all come together to attack their victims, like secret meetings of Parliament, declaring an act of war against the victim, telling the victim you better watch your back, advising a victim, well, Jan White says you hope you don't go and get a gun. All these labels, Quentin Doig once said, oh, you're on his hit list. All these negative impacts that they're trying to slander and label and defame their victims with. All the statements that they make are to provoke a reaction or a statement that you're going to make, that they can then hold you criminally to account. It's all part of entrapment in New Zealand, because criminal entrapment is not a crime. And this is why they get away with the crimes they get away with, and overloading their victim's life with all their shite. That's not rehabilitation. That's not helping someone, assisting someone, supporting someone, or protecting someone. That's literally, you have fucked up and you're going to destroy your victim's life by attacking them and using fear and violence and declaring acts of war on victims. And you're going to have everybody within your pay structure assisting you in that crime to attack your victim. You know, everyone hides away behind their individual, entities. But when it all matters to them, they all come out attacking their victims. Attacking a victim's sanity while carrying out abuse, threats, violence, intimidation from behind any entity, and without following due process of any kind. I mean, you see, what it is these people go out and they accuse themselves. They recuse themselves of any accountability whatsoever. They're the victims, you're the villain. There's no due process, there's no proper investigations of who instigated what, who said what, who did what. It's people acting as judge, jury and executioners over their victims and getting away with it at the expense of taxpayers' money. So, this is part of my sickness at the minute. So anyway, once you start attacking a victim's sanity, the victim has to prove they don't have a mental illness, they don't have a brain injury, they haven't threatened anybody. These are all the things that the victim is investigated for, violated and raped of their lives. This is where their family, their friends, are literally having to vouch for the patient, the legitimate claimant that these people literally carry out their crimes. It's wrong. It's completely wrong. I have never come across such a slave trade action and industry in my entire life. I've never come across so many people with no morals, no ethics, no principles, no integrity of any kind. I have never come across so many governments that literally assist each other in carrying out the crimes against their own people and the victims of their crimes. That's what New Zealand's filled with. So once you start attacking the victim's sanity, it's the victim who has to prove otherwise. There's no investigations into the civil and criminal jurisdictions. The civil jurisdiction has been used to commit the crimes, but the crimes are not being investigated. You have misfeasance in public office by government ministers in the running of a slave trade. You have fraud, you have criminal blackmail, you have criminal holding for ransom, you have Mexican standoffs created through fear and violence. You have the victim isolated, alienated, singled out, slandered, labelled, defamed. You have literally carried out one of the biggest organised crime run actions that anybody could ever carry out against an injured person. And the injured person is the one who has to come up with tens of millions of dollars to address all these crimes that these people are involved in. That they deny they're committing any crimes because they're hiding behind with, you're getting what you're entitled to, but nobody can tell me what I'm entitled to. I haven't received an ounce of rehabilitation for post-traumatic stress in 13 years. I haven't had one meeting to discuss my case in 13 years. I have a GP who literally hasn't sent me off to any medical experts or specialists to have my PTSD addressed or properly diagnosed, or, let me see, you can see the videotape that I had with her the other day. She doesn't know what my injuries are. She has no medical notes or medical files to go on. This is her line of excuse. So I've got another meeting with her on Saturday. That's why I'm reading out all this now, because I don't know how much of this I'm going to be able to read out when the time comes. Where is it? Due process is as criminal as it gets. For medical experts to try to justify such attacks with if, buts and maybes is pure evil. I mean, you say ifs, buts and maybes is what a victim's life is being controlled by. And it is pure evil, because no one's listening to the patient, no one's listening to the victim. I can understand now why mentally ill patients end up committing suicide. I can understand why people end up committing murder, because I've been through it all. And I know how far they push you, and I know how far they work to wear you down mentally, psychologically, emotionally, physically, and financially. This is a murderous, intentional act. There's nothing civil about it. They want to spoon feed you shit so that you live in existence, and they defraud you of 75% of your quality of life and 75% of your income, potential income, that you would have earned had they have done their job in the first place, which then they want to turn into a civil matter and sue them, which isn't going to happen, because the criminal intent behind it was to defraud me and to run a slave trade. So there's, it's misfeasance in public office, because they're not protecting the rights of the victim or the patient, because nobody has a fucking clue what they're doing. Yeah, that's going to be a cracker. That's going to be a cracker question for the doctor. Do you actually know what you're doing? I don't think so. I think the evidence proves that. I don't think any of them know what they're doing, because it's all piecemeal fashion, loads of shite, sidestep, go around it. But on the main, it's about holding the victim criminally to blackmail and ransom at all times. So the villains are protected, and the victims and patients are not protected. They're literally in a kidnap situation. All the crimes that I speak of are crimes under the Crimes Act, but all these crimes are being committed behind a civil jurisdiction and behind a government entity, and they're then working to try and get rid of the victim for free while they carry out all their crimes. Medical people, what part are they meant to play with injured people? I, to this day, have no idea what a GP's role is when it comes to rehabilitation under ACC. If you were a patient with health problems, illnesses, so on and so forth. It's straightforward. You're paying for it. It's user pays, blah, blah, blah. And off you go. You get it addressed. When it's ACC, it's a completely different kettle of fish. There is no, there is no discussion. They send off a medical certificate. The injuries aren't on the medical certificate. There's excuses galore. There's ignorance. There's denial. It's literally just a money tree that injured people are third-class citizens, and their lives aren't worth a fuck unless they can get themselves fixed, because the doctors aren't going to do it for you. In reality, they do what ACC and their lawyers tell them to do, as proven in my case. The detrimental impacts such actions have on victims' lives, leading to dysfunction in one's life, because ACC, the Crown and the Government and all the people involved in it are dysfunctional. It's a systemic dysfunction. It's denials, refusals. They're only looking after their own best interests, their jobs, their careers, their income, and their victims are paying for it all. You can see I disagree with that. New Zealand is one of the biggest corrupt countries you'll ever come across. It's all dysfunctional. For victims under ACC. And ACC Crown and Government slave trade actions, from alleging brain injury and following through with mental illness and threats to kill. These are the lines of attack that they attack their victims with. I didn't have any of that. I was the clearest thinking person you'd ever come across. All I did was have a disagreement with a chief legal counsel called Gerard McGreevy, who made a false declaration of my name. I copped onto it. I told the truth about it, and then he went on his attacks of fear and violence and literally going out to destroy my life. And then making me answer. And then he gets to violate and rape my life through forensic psychiatrists, so he can try and pull up as much shite in my life and take my life right back to childhood and bring up all the garbage onto the sun, and then go out and have my friends and my family testify for me in front to a forensic psychiatrist. I mean, I've never seen so much fucking evils in my life. How did this guy get away with this? And the government does nothing about it. He's well within his rights to do everything according to ACC. So he's well within his rights to own my privacy, to own my rights, to turn my life into a slave trade under ACC. The government are now frightened of this because they know that I can prove all this beyond any reasonable doubt. And they're all running a mile from it. Dr. Brett Roach, according to the records, was mentally ill. Now, I have a GP who's mentally ill. So how could I obviously obtain proper help in my plight when being attacked? When I'm dealing with a doctor who's mentally ill. A doctor who's mentally ill who's telling me, there's no way you're mentally ill, Michael. That's for damn sure. And he wrote it up in his medical notes and medical files. He was threatened by Gerard McGreevy himself. And there's plenty of emails relating to that. So in actual fact, we have one villain in a position of power making it personal with me, his victim, and then he's funding all of the help, assistance, support and protection through Crown and taxpayers' money at his disposal. So he literally had a money tree. He could do whatever he liked with it. He had me stalked, slandered, labelled, defamed. He had security guards used. He had private investigators used. He had police used. He had, no complaints that I ever made were ever addressed or ever investigated. This is the other problem and the corruption of these people when they're attacking a victim in society. The victim doesn't get any help, assistance, support or protection. They shut up shop and then they blame the victim for everything that they're actually doing to their victim. And this is the other problem. And it's never brought out in a court of law because even the defence lawyers, once you run out of money, you end up with these wanks. And they screw you as well. They just do what's easy for them. They're not interested in the truth, the facts or anything else. They're only interested in protecting the realm and those at the helm. And they're getting their pockets lined in other ways, like nice promotions, nice places, nice jobs and different firms. I know how it all works. It's the most corrupt country you'll ever come across. So, I have to ask you, how fucked up is this case? So what am I dealing with for 20 years? In all what they created, I've suffered more injuries under their controls, and injuries that they caused, even attacks in the back of a police car, pepper sprayed in a bloody cell for asking for a cup of tea, pushed, prodded, you know what I mean, like sandwiched, you name it. I've been sort of intimidated, bullied and abused, when I was in their custody. That they set me up for crimes and then just conjured up as many crimes as they could. But that all took place after a secret meeting in Parliament on the 20th of June 2007, that all the names are still being withheld. People in power in New Zealand want that power over their victims, to do what they want, and then demand that their victims use their corrupt system to address the crimes that they're actually committing. So in other words, they want to be able to cover up their crimes at all times, and the victim has to pay to employ a lawyer to address every different part of my case, which means I would need a lawyer to address the Human Rights Acts, a lawyer to address the Privacy Acts, a lawyer to address the ACC legislation and law, a lawyer to address the Ombudsman's Acts, a lawyer to address Cabinet and Government and all their ministers' obligations, responsibilities, duties, and what they're actually dealing with. So in other words, I would need tens of millions of dollars to actually address the crimes that they're actually committing, because they're all the laziest bastards on the planet. All they are is spokespeople and standing up, looking after their own best interests. So once you're using the corrupt system at the expense of the victim, that's how the state terrorists work, to have control. Where is the fairness in declaring acts of war on a victim and carrying out one's crimes, then demanding to remain in complete control and ownership of the victims' lives? These are questions I'm going to ask my doctor. Because, in all honesty, the doctors are the person who is supposed to be the middle person, who's supposed to be acting impartially on behalf of the patient, but isn't actually doing it. Because they're profiteering from ACC Crown and Government, and all the victims are getting screwed. So, these are issues that will never ever be resolved unless I'm paying for it. And this is how the government holds you criminally to blackmail and ransom. But here's a few bullet points that I've actually written out. MedCert is a crime, how it is written up and filled in. Because none of the injuries are on it, which means when I went to court, the only thing the jury saw was laceration left forearm and chronic pain. No spinal injury, no neck injury, no post-traumatic stress, and none of the actions that I suffered up to that point. Abuse, threats, intimidation, violence, agreements with ACC. None of that was allowed to be introduced into the court of law. And then they withheld a secret meeting in Parliament on the 20th of June 2007 and all the names of all the people that were involved in it from both the court cases that they took against me. So this is all the chicanery and trickery and deception and corruption and criminality that they get up to. Injuries not investigated or addressed. I mean, you say, how can you rehabilitate someone if you don't investigate injuries and you don't address injuries and you don't write up proper reports? When you're sending a victim down a path of forensic psychiatrists, the only thing you're writing up is what is the mental state of mind of the patient. You're not writing up what the patient has been subjected to by the criminals involved. And that's half the problem. Because the attack is about the victim, the patient, not the people who are actually committing the crimes, who should have their fucking sanities questioned. Causing injuries, then not addressing them. This is what ACC Crown and Government and all their lawyers and police and ombudsmen, this is what they do all the time. It's all aimed at wearing the victim down mentally, psychologically, emotionally, physically and financially. Changing injuries and to symptoms, which is also a criminal act. Now, my injuries were They didn't give me a nerve block, and it oversensitized my entire nervous system. And then J.R. McGreevy, through corrupt medical practices, instructed the doctors involved to change my injuries from an oversensitive nervous system to chronic pain, which then led to me getting all these pain medications. Pain was not my issue. There is pain, but I can override pain. That's not a problem. You can't override the fatigue and the exhaustion and the draining and the heart palpitations and these are all the things that get affected with an oversensitive nervous system, and the nausea and the headaches and but he was having my mind addressed for chronic pain. And the only thing that they were treating chronic pain with was brain altering medications. Now, back then, they didn't have the technology they have now with a computer and Google and all that stuff. So you're trusting your doctor. People nowadays don't trust doctors. Because of the internet, you can pull up a lot of things. You can look up medications, you can look up and say, fuck that, it's a joke, Alleging brain injury, alleging mental illness, alleging threats to kill, all to violate and rape and attack a victim's life, and use fear and violence on top of it, all instigated by the criminals themselves. I was always a very easygoing person, laid back, not a problem, just went to work, came home, enjoyed my life, have injuries, have accidents, and then end up in this shit. No. These are the actions of people who are bored, that have no lives. And they think it's all fun. And the whole intent is to make money and to make sure that they defraud the victim of everything they have. That is the intent of these people. After investigation of said malicious criminal motivated acts, still not correcting the facts of who are the aggressors. This is another problem. They never get investigated for anything they've done to my life. I get investigated for saying fuck. It's a joke. Threatening my life personally, personal safety, which gets no address whatsoever. They've threatened me in every way known to man. They even put me under siege in my own home. The New Zealand police, after they implemented all their malicious criminal prosecutions. But their malicious criminal prosecutions started before that, when the police came to my home in 2006. Yeah, about November, December 2006. And if my memory serves me right, that was Neil Hallett as well, fucking terrorist. He was sent there by Ruth Dyson, because the entire agreement with ACC that I entered in June 2006 to ACC would never be involved in the management of my claim again, as stated by John White. But they had started this line of attack straight after I signed that agreement. They destroyed all the medical notes and medical files, they destroyed all the ACC case notes and files, and then McGreevy then got the boot after he implemented all his malicious criminal prosecutions following a secret meeting in Parliament on the 20th of June 2007. Right, following and proving I never had a brain injury, I never had a mental illness, and I never threatened anybody. Why was no one criminally investigated for the attacks that I had to suffer? These are questions that are left unanswered. So I'm being held criminally to blackmail and ransom, a Mexican standoff, stagnant stalemate, isolated, alienated, offered an agreement, and stated they could never be involved in the management of my case ever again. To that of being falsely imprisoned, having my sanity attacked again when I was supposed to be rehabilitated, get best medical treatment money could buy, and set up in my own self-employed business. So there was never any intentions of setting me up in my own self-employed business, and there was never any intentions of rehabilitating me There was only the intention of getting him to sign the agreement. Then we'll take malicious criminal prosecutions against them. We'll set him up, and then we'll shut up shop. We'll get rid of him for free. If we don't get rid of him for free, then we'll just shut up shop. And that's how this case worked. My case was moved to a third party so that ACC would never be involved again. So who instigated taking my case back off a third party to implement the malicious criminal prosecutions? And why was all the Crown and Government departments called upon to assist in the carrying out of this crime and these attacks on my life? These questions are left unanswered, and no one's addressing any of it. Now, ACC implemented 6 months later malicious criminal prosecutions. Well, I'm just after going through that. But it was just a question that I put down. Right. So, they've accused me of a threat to kill 3 times. Twice I tape recorded it. The third time the tape recorder didn't work. Something fucking malfunctioned. I don't know what happened. And that's what left me in the shit. And that's how they were able to falsely imprison me. And that's how they were able to attack my sanity again. And it was all done on hearsay, lies, innuendo, speculation, manufacturing, and them instigating their own threat to kill. As they always do, because they're terrorists. How easy it is for ACC Crown and Government to carry out its robbery on victims' lives. Now, they suspended all my rights, entitlements, rehabilitation, medical and treatment needs for over 4 years. And on the touch of a button, they were able to carry out the robbery of 14% extra tax. And then shut up shop and then make a statement out on TV1 News. Oh, it's a tax glitch. No, it's not a tax glitch, because they knew before and after the fact that they were going to defraud me of 14% extra tax, which is why the courts kept throwing my case out and saying blah, 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 when they were acting illegally and lawfully with criminal intent at all times, because I was fully compliant with the law at all times. So what I am is, I'm held criminally to blackmail and ransom at all times, and the government isn't doing anything about it. Cabinet Minister advising a victim they can walk away at any time without any further action being taken. That's Ruth Dyson. That's the advice that she gave me. I can walk away without any further action being taken. Now, that is a reality, yes. But the criminal intent behind it is also criminal blackmail under Section B of the Crimes Act. Because what she's trying to do is intimidate me, bully me, abuse me, harass me, criminally harass me, stalk me, lie, deceive, manipulate, to get rid of my claim for free. Have me kidnapped, attack my sanity over and over and over and over and over. And her answer is, I can walk away any time I want without any further action being taken. Now, I don't think any injured person could ever walk away with nothing without any further action being taken. That proves beyond any reasonable doubt, just that one statement, that her intent was to get rid of my claim for free. Her intent was to get me to walk away with nothing. Her intent was never to address the systemic failures and the fact that ACC is a slave trade action and being used as a slave trade action in New Zealand to get rid of their victims' lives. A victim suffering injuries left to fight for sanity, health and well-being, for rights, entitlements, rehabilitation, medical and treatment needs, no rehab plan, no rights to be heard, no accountability, no justice, and all of this done through alleged mental illness, brain injury, threats to kill, that none ever took place on my part. No victim is going to benefit from threats to kill or brain injury or mental illness. You know, these are actions that are taken to literally cover up the fact that they didn't put on a nerve block. Right? And a nerve block leaves you with twitches, and it leaves your muscles all fatigued, and it leaves you with a lot of tightness, and it leaves you with a lot of it's like your muscles like a hard rock all the time, your neck, your shoulders. This is what an oversensitive nervous system does to you, because the muscle literally goes into a cramp, and it happens all the time, all over your body, and that does cause you pain. But pain's not the problem. The oversensitive nervous system has always been the problem. And the person who changed it, and the person who instructed them to change it from an oversensitive nervous system to chronic pain, was actually thinking about committing a criminal act to begin with, because you should never have been changed from one to the other. Anyway, I'm going to leave it at that at the minute, and I'll get back to it in a little while. Over and out. I'll give you all the rest of it, and then I can cut the 2 tapes or 3 tapes together.